The malicious laughter echoed across the empty parking lot as three seniors surrounded Maya at the school gate. "Get in the car, scholarship girl. Time for your orientation." Braden Ashford's voice rang with practiced authority, his letterman jacket gleaming under the afternoon sun. Maya looked at her captors with an eerie calm, then slowly pulled out her phone. "Raven Base, this is Falcon 7, requesting immediate extraction." The bullies burst into laughter until they heard the distant sound of helicopter rotors. In 15 minutes, they would learn that mistaking the daughter of a government employee for the daughter of a Special Forces colonel was the most expensive error of their privileged lives. But let me take you back to where this all began, because what happened at Whitmore Academy that October afternoon would become the most viral school incident in Virginia's history. Before we dive into this incredible story, I want to take just a moment to say thank you for being here. Stories like Maya's need to be heard, and you make that possible. If this story moves you or reminds you of someone who's faced similar struggles, please consider leaving a comment below. Your experiences create a community where everyone feels less alone. 3 weeks earlier, Maya Sullivan had stepped through the pristine marble entrance of Whitmore Academy for the first time. The elite private school nestled in Virginia's wealthiest district operated like a fortress of privilege, where parking lots gleamed with luxury vehicles and family donations could erase any transgression. Students moved through hallways lined with portraits of distinguished alumni, most bearing surnames that graced government buildings and corporate boardrooms across the nation. Maya's introduction to her new classmates was deliberately vague. "My father works for the government," she'd say when pressed about her background, then redirect conversations toward homework or weekend plans. What she didn't mention was that Colonel Jacob Sullivan commanded the Air Force's most classified Special Operations Unit. What she couldn't reveal was that their frequent relocations weren't due to typical military transfers, but because her father's missions required absolute operational security. The first anomaly appeared during second period advanced placement history. While other students sprawled casually in their seats, Maya positioned herself in the back corner, ensuring her back faced the wall, and she maintained clear sight lines to both exits. Her pen grip resembled military briefing notation rather than teenage note-taking, creating precise, abbreviated codes that would have looked like gibberish to anyone unfamiliar with tactical documentation. During lunch, she instinctively checked her watch every few minutes and swept the cafeteria for potential threats, habits so ingrained they'd become unconscious. Her worn athletic shoes bore the distinctive pattern of tactical training rather than recreational jogging, though she explained the scuffing as hiking with my dad. Braden Ashford noticed her immediately, but not for the reasons Maya hoped. As captain of the football team and son of Governor Richard Ashford, Braden had grown accustomed to the unspoken hierarchy that governed Whitmore's social ecosystem. Legacy families held court at the center of campus life, while scholarship students understood their place existed on the periphery. "New girl thinks she's special," he muttered to Tanner Wells during third-period chemistry. Tanner, whose father served as the state's Chief Justice, nodded in agreement. Their assessment of Maya was swift and merciless, another charity case who needed reminding about proper social boundaries. The campaign against Maya began subtly. Braden would interrupt her responses during class discussions, dismissing her insights with practiced condescension. "That's an interesting perspective from someone who's probably never left the state," he'd say, earning chuckles from classmates who understood the coded reference to economic status. Maya absorbed each slight without visible reaction, though her jaw would tighten almost imperceptibly. During group projects, she found herself consistently excluded from teams led by popular students. Study groups formed around her but never included her. The isolation was methodical and complete. Sophia Kim, A quiet junior whose parents had immigrated from South Korea, was the only student who dared approach Maya during those first weeks. "They're testing you," she whispered during biology lab as they partnered on a dissection project. "Braden does this to everyone he thinks doesn't belong." Last year, it was Marcus Chen. The year before, it was Jenny Rodriguez. "What happened to them?" Maya asked, her voice carefully neutral. Marcus transferred to public school. Jenny's family moved to another district. Sophia glanced around nervously. "But you seem different, like you're not afraid of them." Maya's response was interrupted by Tanner Wells deliberately bumping into their lab table, sending their carefully arranged specimens scattering. "Oops," he said with mock sincerity. "Maybe you should be more careful where you set up." What Tanner didn't notice was how Maya's stance shifted during the collision, her weight automatically distributing for defensive action before she consciously controlled the response. What he missed was the way her eyes tracked his movements afterward, cataloging his behavioral patterns with the systematic attention of someone trained in threat assessment. The escalation accelerated after Maya scored the highest grade on their European history midterm, earning public recognition from Mr. Henderson during announcements. Braden's expression darkened as Maya's name echoed through the PA system, and he leaned over to whisper something that made his nearby friends laugh. That afternoon, Maya discovered her bicycle tires slashed and her locker vandalized with permanent marker. The word "charity" had been scrawled across her locker door in bold letters. Principal Davidson's response was disappointingly predictable. "These things happen," he said with practiced dismissal. "Perhaps, if you kept a lower profile, you'd avoid attracting negative attention." Maya documented everything, using a compact device that looked like a standard smartphone but contained military-grade recording equipment. She captured audio of every incident while automatically time-stamping and GPS tagging the evidence. The device's encryption protocols would have impressed federal investigators, though to casual observers, it appeared to be nothing more than a teenager taking notes. When she pulled out this specialized recording device during particularly heated confrontations, she activated features that most students couldn't have imagined existed. The crystal-clear audio capture, automatic legal documentation, and forensic-level data protection represented technology typically reserved for law enforcement operations. This was precisely the type of evidence-gathering tool that professional investigators relied upon when building cases that could withstand courtroom scrutiny. The cyber harassment began in earnest during Maya's fourth week at Whitmore. Fake social media accounts appeared overnight, posting carefully crafted rumors about her supposed history. Maya Sullivan stole her scholarship by lying about her family's financial situation, read one post that garnered dozens of likes. Another claimed she'd been expelled from her previous school for academic dishonesty. Maya's response surprised everyone who expected tears or desperate denials. Instead, she continued attending classes with unflappable composure, turning in assignments that consistently earned top grades while maintaining the same calm demeanor that had initially attracted Braden's attention. But beneath her serene exterior, Maya was implementing countermeasures that revealed just how dangerous it was to underestimate her capabilities. When the fake accounts attempted to hack her actual social media profiles, they encountered security protocols that shouldn't have been available to a teenage civilian. When they tried to access her email, they triggered defensive systems that traced their digital fingerprints with precision that would have impressed cybersecurity professionals. Late one evening, as Braden and Tanner coordinated their online harassment campaign from Braden's bedroom, their laptops simultaneously crashed. Error messages flooded their screens in sequences that suggested someone with advanced technical knowledge had turned their own weapons against them. The attacks ceased abruptly, though neither boy understood why their supposedly foolproof plan had backfired so spectacularly. The physical intimidation escalated during Maya's 5th week at Whitmore. Tanner cornered her after chemistry class, using his significant height advantage to loom over her in the empty hallway. "You think you're smart, don't you?" he sneered, grabbing the front of her uniform blazer. Maya's response was so subtle that security cameras would have struggled to capture it clearly. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, applying a basic disarmament technique that caused Tanner's grip to release involuntarily. To observers, it might have appeared that he simply changed his mind, but Tanner felt the controlled pressure that suggested someone had trained her in considerably more than self-defense basics. "I'd prefer if you didn't touch me," Maya said quietly, her tone carrying an undercurrent that made Tanner step backward involuntarily. The incident left him rattled in ways he couldn't articulate. When Braden pressed for details later, Tanner struggled to explain why a confrontation with someone half his size had left him feeling like he'd narrowly avoided serious danger. Maya's knowledge of Whitmore's security infrastructure became apparent during her 6th week, when she began positioning herself in locations that seemed random but actually represented optimal surveillance coverage. She understood instinctively which areas had camera blind spots and which had audio recording capabilities. Her conversations with Sophia always occurred in acoustically protected locations, while her responses to harassment happened precisely where documentation would be most comprehensive. "You really do seem different from other transfer students," Sophia observed one afternoon as they studied in the library. "Like you've dealt with situations like this before." Maya looked up from her advanced calculus textbook, considering her response carefully. "My family moves frequently. You learn to adapt quickly." "But this feels like more than adaptation," Sophia pressed gently. "Sometimes when people confront you, it's like you're evaluating them for something, like you're gathering intelligence." The observation was more perceptive than Maya had expected. "Old habits," she said finally. "My father taught me to pay attention to people's motivations." What she didn't mention was that Colonel Sullivan's lessons included formal training in threat assessment, operational security, and defensive tactics. What she couldn't reveal was that their dinner conversations often resembled mission briefings, with discussions of risk mitigation and strategic planning that most teenagers would have found incomprehensible. The anonymous threats began arriving during Maya's 7th week at Whitmore. Text messages from untraceable numbers warned of accidents that might befall students who didn't know their place. The language was carefully chosen to avoid explicit threats while making the intended message unmistakable. Maya's response was to forward each message to an encrypted server that most high school students wouldn't have known existed. The digital trail she created would have satisfied federal prosecutors, though she took care to ensure her evidence gathering remained invisible to her tormentors. But Braden's patience was wearing thin. The new girl's refusal to be intimidated was becoming a personal affront that threatened his carefully constructed reputation. During a heated conversation with his inner circle, he proposed an escalation that would either break Maya's spirit or force her to transfer. "She needs a real orientation," he declared, his voice carrying the entitlement that comes from never facing consequences. "Something that will teach her about respect." The plan they devised was cruel in its simplicity and devastating in its potential consequences. They would invite Maya for a private conversation after school, ensuring she understood exactly how powerless she was against their combined influence. The session would be recorded for future leverage, creating permanent insurance against any thoughts of retaliation. What they didn't realize was that Maya had been anticipating exactly this type of escalation. What they couldn't have known was that their target possessed communication channels that extended far beyond typical teenage social networks. What they were about to discover was that some government employees' daughters came with backup plans that defied imagination. As October afternoon shadows lengthened across Whitmore's meticulously maintained campus, Maya prepared for what she sensed would be the final confrontation. She activated recording protocols, verified her communication equipment, and sent a coded message that would have seemed like gibberish to anyone unfamiliar with military operational procedures. The stage was set for a collision between privilege and preparation, between entitlement and training, between students who had never faced real consequences and someone whose father specialized in delivering them. The confrontation materialized exactly as Maya had predicted. At 3:45 p.m., as the last buses departed and faculty members retreated to their offices, Braden emerged from the main building flanked by Tanner and two additional seniors Maya recognized as Marcus Reed and Jessica Monroe. Their formation was deliberate, designed to prevent escape routes while maintaining plausible deniability about their intentions. "Maya Sullivan," Braden called out with false friendliness as she approached the wrought iron gates that separated Whitmore's campus from the public street. "We've been hoping to have a private conversation with you." Maya continued walking toward the exit, her pace neither hurried nor hesitant. "I'm sure we can discuss whatever's on your mind during school hours." "Actually, we can't," Tanner interjected, moving to block her path. "What we need to talk about requires privacy. The kind of privacy you get when you take a drive with friends." The word friends carried unmistakable menace, and Maya recognized the tactical positioning that had developed around her. Marcus Reed had circled behind to cut off retreat toward the school building, while Jessica Monroe controlled the angle toward the faculty parking lot. Only Braden's black Range Rover, parked strategically near the gate, remained accessible. "I appreciate the invitation, but I'll have to decline," Maya said, pulling out her phone with movements that appeared casual but followed protocols drilled into her through years of her father's training. "That wasn't really a request," Braden's voice hardened, dropping any pretense of civility. "Get in the car, scholarship girl. Time for your orientation." Maya looked at her captors with the same eerie calm that had unnerved Tanner during their previous encounter. Her thumb moved across her phone's screen with practiced precision, activating an application that most teenagers wouldn't have possessed. "Raven Base, this is Falcon 7. Requesting immediate extraction. Grid reference, Tango 77 Alpha. 4 hostiles. Non-lethal engagement authorized." The bully's laughter erupted immediately. "Holy cow!" Marcus gasped between chuckles. "She thinks she's calling the military. What are you going to do next? Request air support?" "Actually," Maya replied with perfect composure, "that's exactly what I just did." While Maya maintained her defensive position, she discreetly activated another crucial piece of technology. The specialized cloud storage platform she accessed represented cutting-edge security infrastructure designed for sensitive legal documentation. This system automatically encrypted and uploaded evidence to servers protected by military-grade cybersecurity protocols, ensuring that critical information remained safe, even if physical devices were compromised. For anyone facing similar harassment or needing to protect important evidence, this type of secure backup system could mean the difference between justice and cover-ups. Braden's expression shifted from amusement to irritation. "Stop playing games. You're coming with us whether you like it or not." He stepped forward aggressively, reaching for Maya's arm. What happened next lasted less than 3 seconds, but fundamentally altered the power dynamics that had governed their previous encounters. Maya's defensive movement was so fluid that security cameras would later struggle to capture the precise mechanics. Braden found himself face down on the asphalt, his arm twisted in a position that suggested someone had received considerably more than basic self-defense training. "I told you I preferred not to be touched," Maya said, releasing him and stepping back to her original position. The distant sound that had been building during their confrontation suddenly became unmistakable. The rhythmic thumping of helicopter rotors echoed across the Virginia countryside, growing louder with each passing moment. What started as background noise evolved into an approaching thunder that made conversation increasingly difficult. "What the heck is that?" Jessica demanded, her voice rising above the mechanical roar. Maya checked her watch with the precision of someone accustomed to coordinating with aerial support. "Extraction team. Estimated time of arrival. 14 minutes, 30 seconds. Current status? 12 minutes, 45 seconds. Two black shapes appeared on the horizon, growing larger as they approached Whitmore Academy. The helicopters moved with military precision, their flight patterns suggesting crews experienced in tactical insertions rather than civilian transport. Tanner's face had gone pale. "This is nonsense. She can't actually be calling in helicopters." "You're about to discover how wrong that assumption is," Maya replied, her phone buzzing with incoming communications that she answered using terminology that definitely wasn't part of any standard teenage vocabulary. "Falcon 7 copies. LZ is clear. Repeat, LZ is clear for immediate insertion." The Blackhawk helicopters thundered overhead before settling onto Whitmore's meticulously maintained football field with practiced efficiency. Dust and debris swirled in dramatic clouds as the rotors continued spinning, suggesting crews prepared for rapid departure rather than extended deployment. Colonel Jacob Sullivan emerged from the lead aircraft wearing full tactical gear, followed by 6 special operations personnel whose equipment and bearing left no doubt about their professional capabilities. Maya's father moved with the controlled urgency of someone accustomed to crisis situations, his eyes immediately assessing the scene before focusing on his daughter. "Status report, Falcon 7, he called out, his voice carrying the authority that comes from commanding elite military units. 4 subjects attempted unlawful detention, Maya replied, shifting into the clipped communication style she'd learned during countless family debriefings. Situation contained, evidence secured, requesting full tactical assessment. Braden and his companions found themselves surrounded by Special Forces operators, whose presence transformed them from confident predators into terrified children. The realization that they had attempted to kidnap the daughter of a Special Operations colonel hit them with devastating clarity. "Sir, we didn't know," Tanner stammered, his earlier bravado completely evaporated. "We thought she was just a regular student." Colonel Sullivan's expression remained professionally neutral, though his eyes held the cold calculation of someone evaluating threat levels. "Attempting to abduct any student is a federal crime. Attempting to abduct my daughter activates protocols you definitely don't want to experience." The situation escalated further when additional vehicles arrived at Whitmore's entrance. FBI agents emerged from black SUVs, their presence indicating that Maya's extraction had triggered broader investigative procedures. Special Agent Martinez approached Colonel Sullivan with the efficiency of interagency cooperation. "Colonel, we've been monitoring communications related to this incident. We understand there may be evidence of systematic harassment and conspiracy." Maya produced her recording device, transferring encrypted files that documented weeks of threats, physical intimidation, and coordinated harassment. The evidence package she handed over represented documentation that would have impressed federal prosecutors, complete with timestamps, location data, and audio recordings that captured every incriminating statement her tormentors had made. But the most devastating revelation came when Agent Martinez announced the real reason for FBI presence. "We're also here to execute warrants related to ongoing investigations into corruption involving several prominent families. Governor Ashford, Chief Justice Wells, and General Reed are all subjects of federal inquiries into abuse of public office." The power reversal was complete and utterly devastating. Students who had spent years wielding their family's influence as weapons discovered that same influence had attracted federal attention for all the wrong reasons. Parents arrived at Whitmore to find their children detained and their own legal troubles making headlines. Braden was arrested on charges of attempted kidnapping, conspiracy, and criminal harassment. The video evidence Maya had gathered ensured that his father's political influence couldn't minimize the charges. Governor Ashford's resignation announcement came within hours as federal prosecutors outlined corruption charges that had been building for months. Principal Davidson found himself answering uncomfortable questions about why systematic harassment of scholarship students had been ignored while wealthy families received preferential treatment. The investigation that followed would result in complete administrative turnover and federal oversight of Whitmore's disciplinary procedures. If you or someone you know has faced similar harassment, remember that documenting everything is crucial. Evidence can make the difference between accountability and cover-ups. Comment "Justice" below. If you believe that privilege shouldn't protect bullies, and share this story to help others understand that sometimes the quiet students have the most powerful voices. Maya's transformation from target to hero happened overnight. National media picked up the story of the scholarship student whose military father had arrived via helicopter to rescue her from privileged bullies. The imagery was perfect for a country increasingly concerned about inequality and accountability. But the most significant changes occurred within Whitmore's student body. Students who had remained silent during months of harassment found their voices, sharing stories of their own encounters with Braden's crew. A culture of fear gave way to demands for genuine reform. 6 months later, Whitmore Academy operated under federal oversight with new anti-bullying policies and transparent disciplinary procedures. Braden served 18 months in juvenile detention, while his father faced federal corruption charges. Maya had become a national advocate for students' rights, speaking at schools across the country about standing up to institutional bullying. During Maya's final week at Whitmore, before her family's next deployment, a new student arrived who immediately caught her attention. The transfer process was handled with unusual discretion, and the student's paperwork contained gaps that suggested family circumstances requiring special handling. Maya noticed the newcomer wore a distinctive watch, bearing insignia she recognized from her father's classified briefings. The timepiece was definitely not standard civilian equipment, and its presence suggested connections to agencies that most people never encountered. For the first time since arriving at Whitmore, Maya felt a familiar tension return. The new student's positioning during classes, movement patterns in hallways, and careful observation of other students triggered instincts her father's training had sharpened. As Maya prepared for her own departure, she wondered whether the mysterious arrival represented a new ally whose family faced similar security concerns or a different kind of threat entirely. The newcomer's background remained carefully obscured, leaving Maya uncertain about their true intentions. During their brief conversation in the library, the mysterious newcomer set down their book and studied Maya with calculating eyes that seemed far too experienced for someone their age. The silence stretched between them before the student leaned forward slightly, voice barely above a whisper. "You handled the Ashford situation well. Impressive tactical awareness for someone so young." They paused, glancing around the empty library before continuing with quiet intensity that sent a chill down Maya's spine. Some battles end, others just begin in different forms.